According to the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics, by 2024, there will be a 27% increase in the job for developers. So, now is the best time to start picking up the knowledge needed for this career path. Full stack developers are more likely to be in demand nowadays, because every business is moving to the internet and they are the one-stop shop for developing web-based software applications. Today's video will be a full course on full stack development, starting from the basics to the advanced topics. We will start with a small introduction to the full stack development. After that, we will see how to become a full stack developer. Moving ahead, we will learn more about HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Then, we will discuss the frameworks of JavaScript, which is React and Angular. Next, we will talk about backend development, Node.js and Django. After that, we will learn about SQL, MongoDB and see what GitHub is and how to deploy our project. We will also talk about the salary and skills of a full stack developer. Finally, we have lined up an interview questions and answer series for you guys to help you land a great job in the full stack domain. So without further ado, let's get into this full course.
Is how to become a full stack developer. So let's begin. So here are the topics that we're going to be discussing. So first we'll see what full stack development is, who is a full stack developer, then we'll move on to the responsibilities, and then we'll dive into the detailed roadmap. Alright, now, what exactly is full stack development? Now consider a web application. Let's say Instagram. So every time you refresh the page, new images are loaded. So this is what the user experiences, right? New images are loaded onto his feed. But what exactly happens behind the scenes is that the backend fetches new images from the Instagram servers, and these images are then loaded onto your Instagram feed, right? The app is so easy to use and leaves the users extremely satisfied. In case of any application, there's always the front end, the back end, and the database. So the process of building all of these aspects for an application is called full stack development. So I hope you understood what exactly full stack development is. So moving on, let's see who a full stack developer is. Now basically a full stack developer works with both front end and the back end of an application. He has to be familiar with languages like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and also one or more back-end frameworks like Node.js and Python. Now these developers have got all the web development skills to build websites and applications from start to finish. Now that we've understood what exactly a full stack developer does, let's look at some of his responsibilities. Now the first responsibility is developing the front end. So as discussed, they must be able to develop the user interface for the users with the help of HTML and CSS. Next up is design the backend. Now this is also the most crucial part of app development. They should be able to design robust backend architecture to ensure the smooth functioning of fetching and updation. Next up is to design database and servers. Now databases and servers must be resilient to any outages and must maintain consistency. Next up is cross-platform compatibility. Now depending on the platforms, there could be some discrepancy and alteration in the functioning of an application, right? It's crucial to make sure that the applications behave accordingly on all these platforms. Next up is developing APIs. Depending on the planned architecture, the developer must be able to develop APIs. The application must also be responsive and interactive and keep the user completely engaged. And lastly, it should meet all the technical and consumer requirements. So these were the few responsibilities of a full stack developer. Moving on, let me explain to you a simple roadmap of how to go about to become a full stack developer. So this roadmap basically shows you the prerequisites and skills one should have to become a successful full stack developer. Alright, so let's go ahead and begin with tools and software. Now the first and the most rudimentary requirement is a text editor. Now the most widely used editor is VS Code. It is free, open source and can be used to code in different platforms like Windows, macOS and Linux. Next up is a web browser. So you can either use Firefox or Chrome, but Chrome is highly preferred. Now also you could need a few editor extensions, and VS Code has a few of them. Some of them could be Live SAS Compiler and Live Server. Moving on, you need to have a good hold on HTML and CSS. So HTML is a markup language that is used to define the content that appear on your web page, right? The developer can incorporate images, text, and videos depending on the requirements. And moving on to CSS, it is basically a style sheet which is used to decorate your entire application. It is used to define the appearance of the content, say in terms of shape, color, size, spacing, etc. Next up is JavaScript. Now this is the most widely used front-end language and enhances the interaction with the web page. Now you might want to brush up your knowledge on simple concepts like arrays, functions, objects, and loops. You can also learn ES6 features like callbacks, promises, async await, DOM manipulation and event, fetch API, and JSON. All of these are required when you're making use of different JavaScript frameworks and libraries. So I'd recommend you brush up your knowledge on all of these topics. React, Angular, Vue, and jQuery are some of the JavaScript libraries and frameworks that one can use. Now, all of these topics that we discussed earlier, be it ES6 features or basic concepts, they come in very handy when you're using these frameworks. Among React, Vue, and Angular, over the last couple of years, React has gained immense popularity, followed by which Vue is also being widely used. Now, Angular has seen a downward curve over the past few years. So depending on your requirements, you can choose one of these frameworks. Next up is version control. Now, Git and GitHub are the most widely used version control systems. Now, Git basically helps you manage project files. Git basically keeps track of the entire history of things that the user is working on, right? So it makes sure that it allows the user to backtrack and see what he's worked on until then. Moving on to GitHub, it is basically a web-based service for version control using Git. Now, the user can also look into other people's code, identify issues or errors, and also even propose changes. Now, this comes in extremely helpful when you're working in a team. Let's move ahead and look at some of the backend environment. Now, the most popularly used environment is Node.js. Now, this is basically an open source cross-platform runtime environment that allows developers to create server-side tools and applications in JavaScript. Now, Node is typically used to create real-time applications with two-way connections, wherein both the client and the servers can communicate and exchange data without any hassle. Now, I really recommend you have a basic knowledge on command line as well. That is, now knowledge on basic command line like NPM, that is Node Package Manager, is also essential. So this was a simple overview on Node.js. Moving on to other backend languages, there's Python and the most commonly used framework, that is Django. Now, Python is the easiest programming language out there, and I'm sure everybody will agree with me with this. So it also offers many libraries and frameworks for different technologies. So when it comes to backend in full stack development, Django is a clear winner. Now, it is a high-level Python framework that enables rapid development of websites. It is also free and open source and has a huge active community of users. So I'd really suggest you get your hands on Django and work on it extensively.
Session will be about today's topic, which is become a front-end developer. So let us begin. We are going to discuss the things you need to know to become a web developer. First, we will start with basic skills which every web developer must know before moving into more advanced web frameworks. Then, we will understand what React is and why it is so popular. After that, we will go through another web framework called Angular. Then, we will also get to know about a comparatively new front-end framework called Vue. In the end, we will go through the front-end developer salary trends, which will give you an insight of the job market. So without further ado,